Well, hi. This is, in case I get too lightheaded, because I'll admit it, I'm a little nervous. This is my fifth Anarchapulco, but it's actually my first one I'm speaking. I'm not really going to get into why on that, because it's a long story. But my story is kind of a long, complicated one, and it's all about what happens when you live free in an unfree world. I was a little naive when I was 18 and I found Anarchy, and I was like, fuck yeah, we're gonna do this. And we considered the consequences. We had to think about the fact that we could lose our lives, we could lose our freedom. But it kind of seemed a little abstract at the time. Not necessarily anymore. I think this is a button. Alright, so most people here probably know me. I'm Lily Forrester, not my real name. Pick a fake name if you go on the run. But yeah, I'm co-founder of Anarchapulco, which was really just a complement and addition to what happens kind of similar to Anarchapulco experiences this year. I told my story on Steam It, so most people know me from that, with my On the Run fugitive stories, both here in Mexico and in the United States, because the whole damn thing was crazy. And now I'm, just a writer and a freelancer. Much calmer, but still, a fugitive. It started from birth for me. My mom was a drug dealer and a gardener, and my dad is an auto body technician who liked to work under the table a lot. Taxation was the big part of my childhood. They were very much like, fuck the government, fuck the police, fuck taxes. And both were agorists, and neither of them were aware of it. Like, my dad did work on the books at certain points. Most of the time, he was doing other gigs while working on the books even. So it was, all about the hustle, not necessarily about paying taxes. The activist that is born today really came from these building blocks, which is, it started with Students for Sensible Drug Policy, and looking into libertarianism. That's, I supported Ron Paul in his last election, and I got called an awful person by a feminist for being a woman to support Ron Paul, but that combined with my work in SSDP, which was essentially, I was president of the Kent State chapter. I ran the whole thing. We went to the international conference together. It taught me politics doesn't work. It was my way of I'm going to get in the system and change the system, and I was like, no, this isn't going to work. And then combine that with Bitcoin, which I found out about. All of those combined made it so I couldn't really ignore this lifestyle if I even wanted to in the beginning. Around this time, John Galton. He wasn't John Galton at the time, he had a very different name. Pretty much the same person. I met him at SSDP, and he basically was like, hi, I'm a victim of the drug war, I just got out of prison for growing weed. And for some reason, my naive mind was like, yeah, I'm gonna go date that. And on a first date, he showed me his marijuana grow, which he was doing, even though he had already gone to prison. And I just loved the no fucks attitude. I also loved the will to hustle while doing the college thing. So yeah, we got together and we stayed together, despite the fact we should not have, because we had problems. He had problems, I had problems, we were not good together. But together we found Bitcoin, which was huge, because we were getting into agorism and anarchism, and we're like, okay, but how do we get around money? Are we just going to carry around sacks of silver everywhere? Like, is this the Middle Ages? Or is something different going to come up? And I came home from college, and John turned to me and he said, do you know what Bitcoin is? And I was like, no. And he just explained it's peer-to-peer electronic cash, basically. And then he goes, cash of the internet! And he ended up spending his student loan money that he was supposed to spend on textbooks on Bitcoin. And then he used that Bitcoin to invest for more Bitcoin and also to gamble his ass off at Satoshi Dice, which is how we had 135 Bitcoin at one point. That was when it was worth $100 a coin. Didn't seem like that much money at the time. We got the off-grid mindset, but I'd say I had that from when I was a kid. My dad was always like, I just want to go in the woods and live off the land and fuck the government. But but society kind of keeps you trapped. But we kind of made it happen because we were like, well, how does this happen in practice, especially for two young people who are broke? So we did ghetto off-grid living, and I learned a lot. I learned more than most people. I can live anywhere. And then, urban homesteading. In both Cleveland and Detroit, we were setting up farms. We didn't get the farm set up in Detroit because, well, the arrest. Which that happened in 2015, and it was just, I was just moving stuff from Cleveland to Detroit, and I got arrested and charged with 5 felonies. I knew that I had some not great stuff in my car. It was just weed. But I didn't realize it was 5 felonies worth. They arrested my ass and threw my ass in jail. The guy that arrested me actually was an undercover cop that had previously come to my Students for Sensible Drug Policy meetings trying to act like an interested party, and I recognized him, and he goes, "Oh, look who we got here," when he saw me. So he had it out for me a little. Then comes jail, which was weeks and weeks of scabies-filled horror. That's really all I can say. Scabies are skin parasites that I got from the uniform they gave me. Awful. And then while we were in jail, it was, before we left, they requested no bond, and said we were a flight risk, which meant that they thought we were going to run to another country. So they tried to up the bond from $100,000 to no bond. And our lawyer fought that, managed to get us out, and it wasn't long before we started to that beautiful coastline. This was a plan. The plan is never what happens, but this is the plan. Work and save money. That was supposed to happen in Detroit for the most part. That's where we had work. Get a vehicle. Ours got stolen. It was also in my name, so we were trying to get a vehicle with good plates. Pack, drive to the border, cross without papers, and make it in time for Anarchapulco 2016. The goal is actually my birthday, because my birthday is always during Anarchapulco, but Anarchapulco was our date. So this is what actually happened. We went back to Detroit to hustle, save for money, and we did. Eventually, John Zant's like, come to Oregon, you'll get more work, better money. We get there, we got no work, no money. So we were stranded in Oregon for better part of 3 months before we decided we'd rather be homeless in Mexico. So we managed to get enough weed together, working a little bit, for a truck. Drove that truck until it died, which was 20 miles south of where we got it. We had that kind of luck. And then we were just stranded, and I was literally begging people for money. It was the craziest experience of my life in that regard, because I just had to, the hippies call it crack spanging. So you're just supposed to run up to somebody like a crackhead and be like, hey, you got any spare change? Because if you hold a sign, then the cops know, hey, she needs money, and she's probably somebody we can fuck with. But if you just run around in the parking lot, hey, please help. Yeah, not fun. I was told I could make hundreds of dollars down the West Coast doing that. I made like $50. The only reason we made it across the border is because somebody in Acapulco saw a post of ours on the TDV page saying, hey, here's a Bitcoin address. We can't tell you why we're coming in this way, but please send us money so we can get there. And somebody actually did, and we got across the border with it. This is my favorite meme. My favorite meme ever, because when I saw it, I was like, anybody that knows me well knows that I really, really love chickens, and that I am very chicken-like in personality, just as Jason Henze. And it all makes sense because, well, chickens got warrants. The crossing was a crazy event. I'll have to thank Jeff Berwick for this because we didn't know when, how to cross. We just knew that we needed to, and our last possible date was that if we were going to make in time for this. So we contacted Berwick and we were like, hey, when should we cross? He goes, Friday night, Tijuana, they'll be too busy. And he was right. I made it, so thanks, Berwick. He also told me, if you make it here, don't worry about tickets. And so that was our first Anarchapulco. That was me. That was taken by Avance O'Brien, Anarchapulco 2016. We got the nickname the Fugitives from Joby Weeks. Somewhat a little in jest, but you know. But that was the start of my hustles in Acapulco at that point. It was like, okay, I made it. I love it. I need to survive here because I don't want to leave. And I started my in-home restaurant with my friends that we called the Swedes, and they supported me every night by buying food because they just didn't want to do it themselves. And they liked my food. I was cooking, you guys will laugh, Taco Bell style Mexican food and comfort food because that doesn't exist here. And pizza, the pizza in Acapulco is awful. And then it was, you know, a process of sharing our story and sharing our on-the-run adventures. That's when the story, The Crossing, was originally written, was right that time to try and get our story out there. Because we knew when we decided to come to Mexico, we were going to share our story. We talked about it. We're like, are we just going to be anonymous? Or are we going to just share our story and show everybody how fucked up the system is? Even if we take risks, and we decided to take the risks. So, joined Steam in 2016 as Lily Divine, which I can't access that account anymore, thank you, Acapulco Police. But that is how we shared our story. It was also a compiling of a book that I'm currently working on getting together and finishing to share pretty much the story of why the fuck I'm in the situation I am. But we shared in detail, while it was still fairly fresh, all of our stories on how we got here, as well as the stories we were having here of our police chases and our adventures to the market and all these things that we were doing, and it kind of captured the attention and, you know, the imagination of people. People moved here solely because of us. Henze was here because of those damn Steema posts. This is Anarchapulco 2017, probably one of my favorite pictures ever. You can't see it as easily, but like this, with that face of John was his, you're wrong, and here's why face, but it captures him in a nutshell, because he was always down for a discussion, always willing to talk about anything, and always willing to confront people if he thought they needed confronted. I don't even remember what we were talking about. It was friendly, but he was definitely like, But this is the year that Anarchapulco got born, and it kind of got born with Amanda Roshwitz and Larkin Rose and a few others. We were just talking about what we thought the conference could have been, what the conference was missing compared to previous years as we moved here, away from the city, which is on the other side of the mountain, by the way, to here, which is essentially the suburbs of Acapulco. So it was just a response to criticism and a way to provide for the market. 2018 was first year that they were here. The conference started to improve. People were a little mad when they moved to the Mundo because too much walking, but that year I was working all the time. I did not get enough time for human interaction, because the best thing about Anarchapulco is not the speeches, it is talking to the people for hours and hours about things that you can't talk to most people about. So that's the whole point. But we were working that year because we were trying to recruit people for this. I know that the folks behind Anarchapulco for a long time probably saw Anarchapulco as a competition, but the whole point was to offer a different format because some people wanted a more hands-on experience. Some people love this just come and absorb it experience. Other people want to get involved. They want workshops. They want to put on their own workshop. And they want something, let's face it, a little more affordable. So that's the point of Anarchapulco. And we had it after the event to serve that need for the people that wanted to just not go home and learn more about life here and actually experience the real city. Because that was the point. Anarchapulco would always be in the main bay. But right before Anarchapulco 2019, this happened. I don't really need to say much about that. But what I do need to say is it was the loss of everything. So a lot of people have compared my situation to a sort of phoenix type of thing. Yeah, because like in some ways losing everything was a weird kind of refreshing because I didn't have any responsibilities and I was easy to travel and I moved quickly when I needed to, but everything we worked for, we had an in-home like DIY power wall and like 12 solar panels, and like we were completely off-grid. We had all of the stuff that we used to make our content. We had equipment for Anarchapulco. We had vehicles. We had chickens gone to the cops, or just in the case of the poor chickens, dead in their cages because nobody could take care of them. So I was given basically two choices. I could just give up, which kind of seemed like a good idea, or I could grow hard, which didn't really seem like very much fun. But I couldn't, well, I'll just put it this way. I guess I was scared to kill myself, so I didn't. I figured I'd give it a try and then maybe come back to that later. So the choice to hustle was made. It was all about getting therapy. That started with who's essentially become one of my best friends, Thaddeus Russell. He was essentially a free therapist for like months before he found me the perfect therapist who essentially gave me the final kick in my ass that I needed to start living my life and moving on. Because, I mean, you can only be sad and reflective for so goddamn long. You can only think about a situation so many times before you've exhausted all the possible scenarios when it comes to stuff like that. So it was just about facing what I've been through, because I didn't want to ignore it. Some people spin off and distract themselves. I wanted to face it. I wouldn't watch anything other than stuff relating to the murder, wouldn't read anything. Just made sure I immersed myself in it while it was happening, so that way now when it's not happening, I'm not still immersed in it. Then it was about working hard to make connections. I already had a lot of connections thanks to Steam and thanks to all of you guys. And it was about becoming financially independent because I lived off of donations. If I'm being honest, I would be totally fucked without the people that gave to me and helped me raise the money I did to remain in hiding, pay my legal fees, and some other things. So it was just about, I wanted to provide value for value because I was left with no responsibilities, which was refreshing for about 12 minutes, and then I realized that I had nothing to do. And that I'm not a person that can handle that very well. And then it was about living life because I looked around at the city and realized there were so many things I'd never done in the city and that John never did in the city before he left, despite living here for 3 years together. We just sat in our house and worked the whole time because we felt like we had to instead of enjoying our lives. And I think that is probably one of my biggest regrets in all of it. But yeah, without my friends, I have nothing. Those are the people that hung out with me. There's people that reached out to me just like every week or so to make sure I was still okay. Those people are the people that kept me from going absolutely batty. Now I just hustle. These are my hustles. Highly Functional Growth is a blog project that I started after. It was something we intended on doing together anyway. It was going to be our own blog, our own store, and we just didn't pick out any names for it or start on the project, so I made it happen with Highly Functional Growth. I don't share there as much as I should. I will more soon after all of this is done, but I'm writing a book, and the book is likely going to be a memoir of how the hell I survived the last fucking year with flashbacks as to how I ended up here in the first place, because that's all important. I write for blogs, I edit podcasts, I edit audiobooks, I transcribe, photograph, all of this stuff is, and there's more things I do, and I can learn anything, and yeah, 2020 for me is year of the hustle, 2019 was year of survival. Then comes the decision to move on, which was a difficult one, and one I didn't even necessarily realize I was making at the time, but I found, we'll put it this way, my relationship with John was difficult at best. I do miss certain parts about him, but he was really hard to live with, really hard. So when he died, I was like, I gotta make that not happen again, all of it, from the relationship with John to the murder. So I sat there and I'm like, what do I want? What type of person do I want? And I thought about it and I was like, well, okay, that doesn't exist. So I'm just gonna become a chicken lady. It's all right. I'll be fine. But I found what I wanted essentially on the side of a mountain in kind of weird circumstances that, make a person that doesn't care about supernatural stuff wonder about supernatural stuff. And I found love. And I also found that dog, which came from that man. It was a gift, Renegade. Sad thing is, he's apparently too big and Renegade-like for the princess, because they took one look at him and tried to kick us both out. But it was all about having good people in my life. It was all about having plenty of work to do, and it was the freedom to adventure, because that was the thing that kept me going. Was I would start to get really down about my situation and how awful it was. I was on the run, I was in hiding, and I lost all my stuff, and I witnessed the murder. Like, what the hell? But then I'd go out and I'd essentially remind myself I live in Mexico and I have an awesome life, and that gets a lot easier now as, I'm struck every day by how good my life is compared to how bad it was before. I've learned more than this, but these are just the bullet points of what I've learned. The first one being safety is an illusion. We used to say Acapulco is safe. Acapulco's not safe. I don't really give a shit if it is, and I'm not here for safety, and I was never here for safety, and that's something I realized. Like, I realized other people care about safety, but I never came here to be safe. I came here to have freedom, and I got that, but you have to take that if you come here. You can't just come here and be like, am I free? No, you have to be free or it's not going to happen. Life is too short to live later. We were always like, hey, we'll go to the island here later. And, well, John never saw the island because he was too busy working. I think we would have probably ended up making more money if we had given ourselves times to have fun, because we wouldn't have been so fucking stressed all the time. Sometimes things go very wrong before they go well. That's a big thing. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and I was like, all right, well, I'm totally fucked, but now, a year later, life is good. I have no complaints. The only complaint I have is that I'm still on the run, and I have to pay money to make that not a concern anymore. You can only change yourself is the biggest one. A big part of why John died is because he was trying to change other people before refining himself. He was a very rough, and that's a kind term. He was abrasive, and it cost him his life. That's really all I can say about that. The difference between fair weather friends and family is what matters, is because I had a lot of friends before all of this. Like, people are like, yeah, but Lily, she's trendy because she's on the run, and we're anarchists. But when the event happened, there were two types of people. There were the people that were fucking there, and then there were the people that were like, you are a security risk in yourself. And I paid attention to that, and, the people that were there enough to where those other people didn't matter, but I definitely paid attention. And the last one is you change more minds by doing than by talking, because before I moved to Mexico, nobody knew who I was, and I was the guy in my family like, taxation is theft and voting doesn't work and, we're all slaves and all this bullshit. And not one of them took me seriously. They all actually fought with me, and I excommunicated most of my family because of differences. And then I come to Mexico and I just start sharing my experiences, no opinions on how other people should be doing their experiences, but like, look how much fun I have. And, suddenly I start changing minds. So if you want to change somebody's mind, you need to do something about it. And then something to pay attention to is regardless of how illogical the existence of a state is still going to state. It's still there. We can't ignore it. We can try and live in spite of it, but we need to recognize if we do that, there is inherent risk, loss of life, freedom, or both. Just be careful. Like, it's worth it. I don't regret my life, but I also will say my lifestyle is, when I first moved here, I was like, anybody can do what I do. And, no. It takes a special set of cojones and a weird childhood and a hatred of the cops and some other things. And yeah, if you're not ready to live truly in anarchy, don't worry about it, because it's hard. Like, living without banks, not fun. So yeah, I knew this when I went into this a little bit naively, but I definitely know this now. It's, there's still risks. That's part of why I don't share where I live now, and when I do travel to places, I wait sometimes months after I leave there to show it. But yeah, this is a photo of me. I don't know if you can see the orange flecks, but those are monarch butterflies. I went to go see those this year. One of the experiences that we kept saying later about but didn't go to. One of the most magical experiences of my life. I highly recommend going to Michoacan during December. Holy fuck. Wow. And until further notice, I'm just going to keep doing me a self-governing. And this was used in Avance O'Brien's speech last year. I figured I'd throw it up here because it's a spin on Firefly. And, thank you.